Internal New South Wales government documents highlighting the dire state of fire trucks putting lives at risk. Let's bring in now State Secretary of the Fire Brigade Employees Union, Leighton, Drury. Leighton, thanks for your time tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Now, we saw a week ago this really horrific, tragic fire in New Zealand in a hostel. Arson was to blame, but the Commissioner there did highlight that there were a lot of issues that went into their inability to respond and how there's a risk of other fires happening. You say we're only moments away from a similar tragedy unfolding here. Why?
Well, look, what we see over there, as their Commissioner pointed out, they have an ageing fleet. They have vehicles that aren't up to standard, certainly not modern day appliances. They've got a maintenance problem. They've got a lack of firefighters over there. And it's the same things that we were just talking off air about. Only 3 years ago, we were saying the same things, is that there's been a massive underinvestment in fire rescue now for a number of years. And that's getting to what we call a critical mass, where we have nearly 100 appliances that are past their use-by date. We've got a lack of training, and we've got a massive overtime problem with the amount of shortages that we're trying to fill across fire stations.
So do you look at a tragedy like that and just think, it's any day now?
Look, it only takes a few little things to make a bad situation an even worse. And certainly when you don't have the right tools to do the job, obviously you have a poorer outcome. And it's certainly something that all fire services look at to try and get, the most modern equipment. But certainly Fire Rescue New South Wales hasn't been able to achieve that now for a number of years.
Well, it's extraordinary. I mean, leaked information internally shows that there's about 150 fire trucks beyond their use age. 150 fire trucks. What does that mean in terms of how well equipped they are to respond to a fire?
Well, look, what we've got now is trucks that are breaking down, and I suppose to put it into a situation where obviously you've got an old truck. If we can't get there in a speedy way because they are old or they break down, then we won't be there.
And how often is that happening, these breakdowns?
Well, look, it's happening quite regularly. As we all know, as things get older, they break down more and they need more maintenance. And that's exactly what we're seeing across Fire Rescue's fleet. We've been running a campaign now, and you might have a look at your fire trucks in your viewers, and we've got the age of trucks written in chalk on the side of our trucks, and some of these are 23 and 24 years old, which is 9 years past the standard. Yeah,
and look, this strategic asset management plan from the Office of the Commissioner kind of goes through a lot of those issues. It's also really dangerous, I think, the lack of aerial fire trucks, because
Absolutely.
These are needed, is my understanding, for apartment buildings, for high-rise buildings, high-density areas, commercial and industrial areas, office buildings as well. And yet the government's admitted today, and of course this isn't a Labor government problem, they've just come into power, but, it is now their problem, but they haven't, caused this, that there's 4 areas that haven't had an aerial fire truck. Coffs Harbour hasn't had one in 2 years.
2 years.
There's Umina hasn't had one in a year. Miranda and Hornsby also don't have one, and they're getting replaced soon. But how dangerous is this, that we've got these major areas of Sydney, Miranda, Hornsby, Umina, Coffs Harbour, that haven't had an aerial fire truck? Oh, look, it's outrageous for the community. I mean, I used to work in the area of Hornsby for a number of years, and obviously the development there, the 3-storey walk-ups and the 5, 6, 7-storey buildings that are going in, without having an aerial appliance in that first attack and in those initial minutes, will lead to lives lost if there's a fire. It is a massive problem, and as you did say, it is a problem left from the previous government, and we hope that this new government looks at that and works with us to try and address it. Into the future, I would see if we don't see this addressed in the next couple of years, then yes, we will start having very, very poor outcomes for the community. Now, talk to me about overtime. Firefighters are working longer hours, they're exhausted, burnt out. This is reflected in the overtime bill. Information indicates it's $100 million over budget. How can that be the case?
Oh, look, we've got massive training problems. Obviously, Fire Rescue have made cuts to different areas, training our internal personnel into the ranks of station officer and inspector, but we're still, we're 66 station officers short, we're 20 inspectors short, and that's just at those 2, command level ranks. The amount of firefighters short, I don't even have the number. We could be up to 200 short in that area. And that leads to an overtime problem where obviously we're trying to keep fire trucks online.
Yeah, all right. It's a really big issue. And I just want to make clear that this isn't, a political exercise. I mean, you didn't raise this during the election campaign. You could have raised these issues during the election campaign, but you didn't. you're raising this now. Labor's been in power for a month or a couple of months now.
Look, we raised it with the previous government and with previous ministers, and it fell on deaf ears. We did bring it up with the Minns government, and they offered 600 firefighters going into the next 4 years, which we think is great. But there are all these other problems that we do have. We're obviously asking the minister and obviously the Minns government to have a look at this and hopefully address this to keep our communities safe.
Yeah. All right. Well, I've definitely got more to come on this issue, so we'll keep everyone updated. Thanks for your time, Leighton, Drury.